Welcome to Up to Date. I'm Steve Kraske. If you're looking for a good vacation that's inexpensive, historical, and doesn't involve tons of driving, consider the Missouri-Kansas border region in our own backyards. Aaron Barnhart and Diane Eichhoff are a husband and wife team that have written a definitive guide to historic sites in the region that they say can allow anyone to relive some of the most dramatic episodes in American history. Their book is titled The Big Divide, a travel guide to historic and Civil War sites in the Missouri-Kansas border region. Now, the Missouri-Kansas border region, Aaron, isn't exactly Venice. It's not Paris. It's not even the San Francisco or Chicago. So why a book on it?
Because it's the most significant border in United States history. So much history transpired here. And of course, we think in terms of the border war, the very first years of the Kansas Territory when it was settled by white people in the 1850s. But in reality, this is a site that has been rich with history going back before that, from the time of the very first Indians that came through here, all the way through the Civil War, the incredibly bloody Civil War on the Missouri side that gave rise to Jesse James, to the 20th century when in the concluding chapter of our book we talk about how many great personalities from Harry Truman to the Brown versus Board of Education decision.
Aaron, how did you go about finding all these places? How did you figure all this out?
Well, we started, years ago. Diane, for the last 10 years, has been a scholar with the Kansas Humanities Council, and she has low vision, so I'm her driver. And so we have been to every nook and cranny of the state of Kansas. And then about 2.5 years ago, we realized that as we were visiting a lot of the Missouri sites, that the two sides weren't really communicating with each other. If you grew up in Missouri, you knew about your stories. If you grew up in Kansas, you didn't know about your stories.
Yeah.
And so that was the premise.
Yeah.
And then, as I say, Diane really organized it historically. And once we worked out the narrative, then the other decision we made was we would tell the story of the Big Divide exclusively through its historic and cultural sites. So if a battle happened somewhere and there wasn't really a museum or a battlefield or some place of public memory there to remember it, it might have been significant, but we couldn't use it.
Give me some thumbnail descriptions of some of the places that interested me. How about the Jesse James Farm and Museum up north here, Diane?
Oh, well, that's a very authentic site. It's where Jesse James grew up. There's also a lovely interpretive center that has many authentic, and that's the word to use in this instance, artifacts from Jesse's life. And then there's the stroll down to the actual house where he grew up.
Aaron, how about the Blackjack Battlefield and Nature Park near Baldwin City on the Kansas side?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit. The Friends of Blackjack Battlefield about 10 years ago started acquiring land and raising money to restore it. They just got landmark status, and they're working on restoring the historic house on there. And the first weekend in June, they always do walking tours and commemorations of the event. This site is going to be much bigger in 10 years than it is now.
Diane, the Shawnee Indian Mission Site in Fairway, not far from where I live.
Not far from where we live either. It is probably the oldest historic site in the Kansas-Missouri border region.
Founded by Reverend Thomas Johnson.
Yes.
And yes, the county is named after him,
Yes, a slaveholder slaveholding missionary from Virginia who came in 1830 to educate Shawnee and other Indian children. And that's a very authentic site that's been recently reinterpreted.
How about the Pony Express National Museum up in St. Joe, Aaron?
Yeah, the Pony Express, actually, there are two museums up there that commemorate the Pony Express. One is the Patey House, and it is one of our 16 top sites. We call it a county museum on steroids. It's this old 130-room hotel, and every room has got like something different in it, and that's where the Pony Express set out of. And then the National Museum, I would say the highlight of that site is the very long diorama. I love dioramas. Very long diorama of the entire Pony Express route from St. Joseph to Sacramento.
And Diane, very quickly, if you're going to pick a favorite place to sit in the middle of nowhere without access to technology in our area, you'd go where?
I'd take a picnic lunch and I'd head for the Mount Mitchell Heritage Prairie. You will not believe that you're in the 21st century. There's a very easy walking trail to the top.
And my pick would be on the Missouri side, the Sauk River Camp. This is a CCC picnic site just outside Osceola, Missouri, a town that Jim Lane and his Jayhawkers burnt to the ground in 1861, just as the Civil War was getting underway. And they were so angry about it that it was said that when Quantrill and his gang were riding through Lawrence 2.5 years later, it was to cries of "Remember Osceola."
Aaron Barnhart and Diane Eichhoff's new travel book, The Big Divide, a travel guide to historic and Civil War sites in the Missouri-Kansas border region. So good to have you both here. Thanks for sharing such great expertise with us.